everyone, and welcome to another episode of Annie Talks, where we bring to you interesting stories about interesting people that you want to know about. I'm your host, Annie Rivera. Thank you for tuning in, and to those who have already subscribed. If you're new to the podcast, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. And if so, I personally invite you to subscribe. Annie Talks is brought to you by Luxwear Trends, affordable, luxurious timepieces for every occasion, luxury that lasts forever, and that's what sets us apart from others. Find us on Facebook and Instagram or visit luxweartrends.com. That's Luxe weartrends.com. If you follow my YouTube channel, you may have seen my next guest on one of the episodes, the first of these Hawaiian-style jam sessions called Kanikapila, an artist named Alissa Hunnicutt. Alissa is an upcoming new artist to follow. She is a very promising songbird who plays a mean ukulele. I recently caught up with Alissa at the 2018 NAMM show, and for those unfamiliar with NAMM, it is the National Association of Music Merchants, where music companies, event goers, and industry folks from around the globe gather to see and hear the latest in musical instruments, music production, music technology, music software, you name it, music everything. Alissa hails from Iowa City, Iowa. She holds an undergraduate degree in voice from University of Iowa and later attended graduate school at Manhattan School of Music in New York City, New York, where she lived for 20 years. So now, without further ado, here is my discussion with Alissa Hunnicutt. We pick up the conversation where she talks about studying in New York. Give us a little bit more about your studies in New York. What you studied opera, is that correct?
That's right. So I grew up doing musical theater as a little kid, the local community theater, and singing in a girls' choir and singing in choir in school. And I was so fortunate that Iowa City had such a great music program. And so I was able to do things like sing with a full orchestra when I was in high school. I took a solo in a requiem that we did with full orchestra in high school. And when I heard myself back singing that, I didn't even recognize myself and thought, wow, that classical music moves me in a way that just, the typical sort of American musical theater just hadn't. It took your voice to a whole nother level. And I want to try to keep pushing that. And so that's where I ended up down the path of opera for a little while. And that's what brought me out to New York, was the chance to study at a music conservatory with an amazing teacher, Maitland Peters. And I learned so much from him. My instrument absolutely would not be what it is today without him. And even though opera didn't end up panning out and being where I was meant to be, I'm so grateful to have had all of that training and all of that experience and really stretching my vocal instrument to do a lot of things that it just doesn't do naturally, that you have to work really hard and do exercises and really study and concentrate to get your voice to go as far as it can. And so I feel like that experience was so worthwhile. And then once the opera stuff it wasn't pulling me as much anymore, I went back to musical theater, and I just felt like all the warm, fuzzy feelings that you feel when you're like in love, that's how I feel when I sing a musical theater song. My whole body gets warm and my heart starts to race, and I just feel like I'm home. And so that I decided to go back in that direction. And so I did musical theater. I auditioned for a lot of regional theater and off-Broadway things, and children's theater and just sang up a storm. And then I started, developing more of a cabaret style act, and creating my own work, because when you're auditioning constantly, after a while, you're like, I just want to do what I want to do. And so that's sort of where getting up and creating my own evening, started. And then I landed into puppetry. So that's a whole nother story there.
So let's backtrack and let's talk about what was one of your favorite roles that you auditioned for and eventually landed in musical theater.
Oh, in musical theater, one of my very favorite roles that I still haven't been able to do, but if anybody wants to do a production of She Loves Me, I am so perfect for Amalia. It's like the part was written for me. I remember first hearing Barbara Cook, who originated the role, do it, and it's just everything. It's big high singing, and it's funny, and she's quirky, and so it takes advantage of the real soprano that I am, but it's still just super sweet. And yeah, it's that She Loves Me is probably my most favorite musical ever, and Amalia would be a dream role. Some of the stuff that I did do, I played Millie in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which was a really lovely experience too. I was able to, when they did it first it was a movie musical originally, and Jane Powell played the lead. And then they did a Broadway version of it, or a theater version of it, and the lead didn't quite have the high soprano that Jane Powell had, so they rewrote a lot of the music and changed the keys and things. So when I got a chance to do the stage musical, I went back to Jane Powell's keys of things, and it was really fun to put all of that soprano back into the show. And that's another one of those just heartwarming kind of relationship-y musicals. Mm-hmm. It's so sweet.
Well, perfect. I love this story. I love musical theater, and everybody has a dream role, and I'm happy to hear about your dream role. So let's fast forward to what inspired you to move to California.
Well, honestly, I have been the kind of artist who always has a day job. I definitely consider myself a professional musician, but I know as myself that I feel more confident taking greater risks in my art if those risks don't have to include the money that I pay my rent with. So I have followed along a path where I've always had what I call a parallel career. And my non-musical parallel career is in digital publishing. So anything that can happen on a website, basically. So I've done games and animated series and run a whole website and marketing things for kids, things for tweens, things for adults, like all different ages. I've been in that business of being the producer person, making digital content happen with a team of people who are usually amazing. And so that sort of organizational thing is what I do for my day job. And then my parallel career has been my art. And that way I've been able to do my art the way I want to and when I want to, and work on the things that I want to and that I'm drawn to, because I'm not then tied to getting the thing that just gives me a paycheck.
So then now, what would you say are some of your biggest professional accomplishments in your art, in the work that you love to do since moving?
Well, when I started doing puppetry and then singing musical theater, I combined those things into doing short form puppetry to a song, and then I knitted those together and then added additional songs into a cabaret show that I called The Kid Inside. And that show played in New York for off and on for about a year and a half. I went to the Orlando Puppet Festival with it as well, and I'm so proud of that show. That was something that was cooked up with me, between me and my musical director at the time, Stephen Katz, who's really just like my musical muse in New York. I miss him terribly out here. And he's a musical director, plays piano, is an amazing vocal arranger, and I would come to him with ideas, he would come to me with ideas, and over a few years we shaped that show together. And so that got me started on that style of an evening, where it's basically a cabaret evening, because it's a bunch of different songs that are not necessarily from the same place, but that are knitted together loosely on a theme, or, you know, I'll tell you why it is I was compelled to sing that song. And then when I added the puppetry element to that then just took it to a whole nother place. And so, it's a very theatrical evening that has music and puppetry. And then very recently I've added my ukulele songs to that same kind of an evening. So I'm playing my ukulele and singing, and then I run over and do a puppet show and sing live doing that. And so it's all through singing, but it's all different ways of interpreting song.
I think that's very unique in how you've kind of meld all these different types of artistry into one. I'm curious to know how puppet. Now, what's the name of your puppetry? Is it? Am I reading it correctly? Puppet Missy, or is it?
Puppet Missy is my for me on social media. You'll mostly find me at Puppet Missy. And Missy's actually my nickname. My family calls me Missy. I grew up as a Missy. And so Puppet Missy just turned into a little nickname thing that was unique on the internet, and I was able to get that across all of the social media. So, it's an easy thing to remember. So yeah, instead of Ukulele Alissa, you know, or what, right. Lots of people call themselves those kind of things. You know, I'm Puppet Missy, and it really, because when I found puppetry as an art form, I really felt like I bloomed as an artist. And then adding in the ukulele to that has now just taken that to yet another level. And, but I started with puppetry, honestly, because I was a musical theater girl. Avenue Q came out on Broadway, and I saw it and I thought, I feel like I could do that. There's so many parts about puppetry that I feel like I'm good at. I had already been doing a lot of costume character work, so I'd already, which is, you know, when you're inside the big suit. And I'm really good friends with probably a lot of very, very famous, characters that you might know. And so I was touring around and doing that, bringing basically this big costume to life with my body. I'm a singer. I have a voiceover career as well. I've done some voiceover, some audiobooks and audio drama and animation and that kind of, so the voice part of puppeteering I've done a lot of. And then I just felt, and I'm an actor, and I, you know, all of those kinds of things, I felt like I just hadn't put them all together into what it takes to be a puppeteer. And so I took a class, and I was pretty bad. and then I worked really hard at it, and I got better. And it started to gel, and then once that started to gel, then I really wanted to know everything I could about puppetry. And I was so fortunate to be accepted to the National Puppetry Conference that happens in the summer every year in Connecticut. And I went 7 times over 11 years. And so almost all of my real training in the art of puppetry, the technique that it takes to be a puppeteer, I owe to the National Puppetry Conference at the O'Neill Theater Center. So that really became my training ground, and it exposed me to all these different styles of puppets. You know, when you're an American and you have grown up watching Sesame Street and the Muppets and, you know, immediately that's the kind of puppet that sort of comes to mind when somebody says, I'm a puppeteer. But there's a whole world full of puppetry that has a huge history in all these different ethnicities and cultures. And so learning more about those, about shadow puppetry, about toy theater, about tabletop puppetry, which is based in a Japanese style called bunraku, rod puppets, Chinese rod puppets, Chinese hand puppets. I mean, there's hand puppets, glove puppets. You know, there's so many different styles of puppet, and I have been sort of dabbling in all of those by finding a story that I want to tell in that style, finding the song that I am compelled to tell using that new form of puppetry, and then I use that as my learning ground for adding a new style. So I call myself, you know, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I do, you know, I do marionettes and all. I do object puppetry. Any kind of puppet you can probably hand me, and I feel proficient enough to bring it to life and tell a story with it. So storytelling is at the core of who I am. That's really what I love to do about music. I'm very focused on the lyric, you know, and so adding the visual element just emphasizes that lyric and emphasizes the story and my interpretation of what that song means.
Wow, that's so awesome. So now, when I first met you, you told the story, and I'd love for you to share the story with our listeners right now, about how you came to learn and start playing the ukulele. You play an Ohana ukulele. So tell us about that.
So I've been singing forever, ever, since before I could talk, I've been told. And singing, and then singing opera and singing musical theater and singing with puppets and all of the styles of singing that I've always done. I've needed someone to accompany me, to play along with me. And usually that's a piano player. So usually someone at the piano who is collaborating with me on the piece of music that we're creating in the moment, which I love to do. But I always need that person, and I don't like to ask those people to play for free, so it also always costs me money to have those people come around. And it's just scheduling, right? So like if I want to go somewhere and sing some stuff, then which pianist do I know who can come and play for me for that thing? Do you have a piano there? Oh, do we have to bring a keyboard? You know, like it just adds this level of complexity. And I'm a big fan of Ingrid Michaelson, and you need to look her up if you haven't heard her. She's influenced me and my music so much. I cover a lot of her songs. I love her melodies. I love her lyric. She just sings to the heart of a story. And at the end of the day, I really feel like I'm a storyteller and I'm lyric driven. So, the ukulele, I was just like, well, you know, that'd be really fun. That could be something I could just sit on my couch at home and just make music just on my own without having to just sing a cappella. I could actually be accompanied by someone, and I don't need to bring somebody over to play piano or play guitar or something. So it was really just supposed to be for me. It was just a little thing for me to sit on the couch and enjoy making music on my own. And that lasted about 6 months because I'm just wired to want to share my music with people. And so, after playing my sort of starter ukulele for about 6 months, I went out and got a higher end ukulele and really started digging into it as an instrument. 'Cause obviously, listen, one of the best things about playing ukulele is you can pick it up. Somebody in about 15 minutes can teach you 3 or 4 chords, and then you can just start strumming along to so many songs that you love. And it can be that simple, but then it's an instrument at the end of the day. So you can continue to become more and more proficient at it, and you can reach for excellence on it. And so there's so much room for growth. There's so much room for interpretation. So many different people are doing so many different things with that instrument, all different styles of music and styles of playing. And so I found my style that I felt really excited about that is focused certainly on the voice and the lyric and the storytelling, but I also try very hard to have a ukulele arrangement that serves the song as well. If there's a build that happens in the song, or if there's a quiet moment, then I do a picking pattern during that and then bring it back in the strumming pattern, that kind of thing. I really love arranging songs and shaping a song to really hit the goal of reaching someone's heart. And when I realized I could do that with my ukulele, I didn't want to just sit on my couch and do that by myself. Yeah. So I started playing out. And then when I moved to California, I found a private teacher. His name is Jared Jenkins. He's amazing. And he's basically my co-arranger. So I'll bring him songs and the two of us will work together collaboratively to create an arrangement that then I go out and play. And he's so great to bounce ideas off of, and we're very compatible musically, and he gets what my style is and what I'm trying to say. So that has been just so fun. And just over the years, we've just been working on more and more and more songs and more complicated riffs and techniques and chords. And, just as you play, you just add in a little more technical difficulty the more you play. And that's how I've been progressing.
Wonderful. Now, I know that you are also, you're doing covers right now, and you're also working on some songwriting of your own. Where do you see yourself in the future, like in a couple years, say, 4 or 5 years? What are your future goals?
Well, yeah, you said it exactly. I would love to try my hand at songwriting. I still have to dip my toe in that water, but I've got ideas floating around, and they're going to land. And so right now I'm working on an album of my cover songs that I play out all the time, and I'm so excited to have that to offer to people as a way to take home after they've seen a concert, or if they haven't seen me, a way to hear my music. And I'm working with Christopher Trainer at Red Light Studios on that album. It's going to be awesome. And then I would like to start writing and developing my own sound and my own stories and my own point of view as an artist. And so my next goal would be to start sprinkling in my own work into my performances, and then probably put together an EP of original songs. And then I'd really like to be able to share more of what I do in my philosophy around the country and around the world. So once I feel like I've got these calling cards of here's my album, you should listen to this. This is what I do. I would love to go to more ukulele festivals as a teacher and be able to do a performance. The workshop that I've been doing lately is on song interpretation. So it takes all of the theatrical training that I've had and brings that over into the world of ukulele. And I find most ukulele players aren't necessarily thinking about who it is they're talking to and why they're saying those words and what just happened and what's going to happen if they're able to get across this idea to this person that they're talking to. So what I do with a workshop masterclass format is I work with an individual on a song going through all of those questions, and we shape the story in their head, the intention of why they're saying all of those things. And then once they've got that, the phrase that my teacher always said and that I continue to say, Warren Kelly says this, inspiration rides on intention. So if you are focused on your intention of what you want to say and why you want to say it, then suddenly all of this inspiration will come out of those moments. Some new take on what that lyric meant, or I want this tempo to go faster here, or now I feel like it'll affect your arrangement in some way. And when you're really thinking about who it is you're talking to and why you're saying it, the vocal instrument opens up. And suddenly you are singing in a way that you're not singing without that intention. And that before and after, when I do my masterclass, is dramatic and exciting, and there's so much love in the room when someone takes that extra step. And it's really, really exciting. So I'd love to do more and more of teaching that philosophy, playing songs all over, and hopefully having an album or two to share with people so that they get to know who I am.
Ooh, sounds wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you. So speaking of future, what are some of your upcoming performances and where can we see you in the next few months?
So I have, as far as seeing me as a solo ukulele player, I've got a show on March 10th, Saturday, March 10th, in North Hollywood, California, at the Republic of Pie. It's a really cute little space in North Hollywood, right on Magnolia. It has a little acoustic stage. They're very welcoming, and they have delicious pie. So if you like pie and you like me and music, then all three of those things will be in the same place on March 10th at 8 o'clock. And then later in the month, I head back to the Midwest, to my hometown of Iowa City. And I love to perform when I'm in town for that. So Saturday, March 31st at 7 o'clock, I'll be at Uptown Bill's Coffee Shop in Iowa City doing a 2-hour set ukulele show. And you'll get to, if you've never met my whole family, they'll all be there. And that's really fun. I just love being able to perform for them, especially my mom. So that's a very special thing when I get to perform in my hometown. So I'm doing that. And I'm sure there will be more on the horizon. There's some puppet things that I'm doing as well. I'm in February, the middle of February, I'm performing with the puppet team on a production of The Magic Flute by Pacific Symphony. So you can catch those. There's three performances of those. I'll be in all black and working with puppets, so you won't hear me sing, but you'll see me be a puppeteer. And then I'm also doing a couple things that I can't give a lot of information about, but I'm working on developing with a friend a children's show with puppets that I'm very excited about. It's a wonderful, wonderful idea. I feel very strongly that it should get picked up by somebody. It's such a great idea. Everyone should see it. So right now we're just trying to put together the initial pitch reel so that the producers can then take that around and try to drum up some excitement. But just being involved in this early stage has been really, really fun. That, and then I'm also going to be puppeteering on a single episode of a network show on CBS, and I don't have the date, but when I know, I will let everybody know.
Yeah, we'll link your information down below in my podcast description. So we'll have your website down below for others who, for viewers and listeners who want to check up on and see where all your performances are. So we'll be sure to keep everybody connected that way. So my last question is for aspiring singers, musicians, and songwriters, performers, and anybody who's just, starting out in the music business or music career or wanting to take that first steps. What takeaway or what message would you like to convey to them, send to them?
I think the most important thing has been for me to find the things that make my heart sing. So if I'm connecting to what it is that I'm doing, then I'm going to be connecting to my audience as well. If you are moved to tell a story, if you're moved to share that melody, then you're going to move someone with that story and with that melody. So I think a place to start, if you really don't even know where to start, is what kind of music moves you in that way, and start playing that. That's really why I have this great show of all these cover songs is because I've tried to find who I am as a musician through the voices of musicians who inspire me. So I took a songwriting class in one at the Los Angeles Songwriting School in Burbank, which I really recommend. And in that class, my teacher had us do an exercise where we needed to put together our musical family tree. So as a musician, as a singer, as a songwriter, who are 3 other musicians I'm inspired by? Think about that question. And then find those artists, do some research, find interviews with them, find out who their influences are. Who did they listen to when they were growing up? Who have they felt is an inspiration for them? And then keep going back as far as you possibly can. And then start exploring all of those artists farther away from you who are indirectly influencing those who then directly influenced you. And that was a really interesting exercise. It's like, well, all roads lead to the Beatles. Well, maybe, but they probably also, lead over to Dolly Parton or Emmylou Harris, or maybe there's some, certainly some Bob Dylan in there, or maybe, I don't know, wherever your influences go. For me, right, like it goes back to musical theater. So Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein and Lerner and Lowe and all of it, like all of my musical theater influence absolutely has to do with who I am as a singer and as an artist. So just because they're not my direct, influences into the things that I'm doing right this second, those people are more like Ingrid Michaelson, Allie Moss, Victoria Vox, and honestly Dolly Parton. And so those are my influences. So who influenced them, and then who influenced them, and then who influenced them, and then start listening to music farther away down your tree.
Alissa, thank you so much for all the wealth of information and for all of us listeners getting to know you a little bit better. And I'm so looking forward to being able to see you in some of your upcoming performances. And I really, truly appreciate the time that you took to be on this show. So thank you very much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Annie. It was so great talking to you. Thank you so much for asking. And yeah, I love talking about how I got to where I am, and I'm absolutely available to anyone who has other questions along the lines of what have you. There's a contact form on my website. Feel free to reach out, and I'd love to discuss other things if hearing me talk about this sparked some other idea.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, I will have all of Alissa Hunnicutt's information down below, as I mentioned in my description. So be sure to check out her website, her Facebook page, and her Instagram. Alissa, thank you so much. And we will talk to you again very, very soon. Thank you so much. Well, that's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Be sure to leave a comment in the comment section and also rate this podcast. It would surely help me out. I'd also love to hear from you, so tell me where you're listening from and let me know what topics you'd like to hear about next. If you haven't already checked out my YouTube channel, be sure to click on the link in the description box of this podcast. I think you'll find interesting videos on fitness, product reviews, tutorials, my celebration awareness videos, and other Annie Talks and special guests. And last but not least, if you haven't already subscribed to my podcast, be sure to hit subscribe and be notified of new episodes. Thank you all again, and keep listening to Annie Talks.
This is Alissa Hunnicutt, and you're listening to Annie Talks.